And of course, Donald Trump is back.
I've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
They fear may spark a global trade war, saying Americans may...
are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Democrats and congressmen even had to be ejected.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
DJ got an official ID. The Secret Service Director got a great big hug.
America.
President Trump has the enthusiastic backing of Report for Ukraine. They now cheer on Mr. Trump's approach, even though it appears to be much tougher on Ukraine than it is towards Russia.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The world has changed since the budget.
Mr. Trump's decision could have serious consequences on the battlefield. Ukraine is now taking steps to repair relations of his suspension of military assistance to Kyiv. It's a move that could seriously affect Ukraine's ability to...
America is back.
And of course, Donald Trump is back. 5 years since he last spoke to Congress.
Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
And then these subsequent conversations, which I'm going to walk inside and continue, I think we're going to see movement in very short order.
It would be worth it.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
On television.
Must prepare for war. That's why we're rebuilding our military. That's why we're reestablishing deterrence and the warrior ethos, is because we live in a dangerous world with powerful, ascendant countries with very different ideologies.
America.
President Trump enjoys the enthusiastic backing of his Republican colleagues, even those who used to advocate for free trade and back strong US support for Ukraine. They are now cheering on his approach to peacemaking, even though he appears to be being much tougher on Ukraine than he is on Russia.
Relations are repaired once agreement has been reached. We know that the National Security Advisor from America has been talking to his counterpart in Ukraine, and we heard from President Zelensky as well. He said that those talks have produced what he described as some forward momentum, and said he hopes to see some results as early as next week. But of course, this has all only come about because President Zelensky has been forced essentially to submit himself to Donald Trump's version of how this peace process is going to go. He came here to the White House last week asking for some security guarantees, and as we know, that became an explosive splat in the Oval Office. Well, now President Zelensky can get back into these negotiations, back on America's good side, and maybe even have all of the military aid restored, only if he agrees to do it Donald Trump's way, and he has, said what he feels he has to in order to try and patch up that relationship, and it seems to be working.
To the pause in military aid and intelligence to Ukraine. Tom Bateman's been speaking to Republican and Democrat senators.
The betrayal of Congress's intent. We have been very clear, and to halt already approved military support is just fundamentally, unacceptable. And we're going to do everything we can to stand with Ukraine and support them.
Last spring, Congress passed a $60 billion weapons package for Ukraine.
I think is illegal, and the cessation of intelligence sharing is a huge mistake.
Among them, Senator John Cornyn.
What I'd like to hear now is what Mr. Putin's willing to contribute to the negotiations. So far, we've just heard what is Ukraine willing to do, and I think without a credible offer by Mr. Putin, it's hard to see where this will go.
The better defend itself.
I've spent time with some of our European countries. They don't want to do their part in defense. They just want us to do it. You can't expect American taxpayers and men and women to do all this. The Europeans got to have to start standing up.
Waterhouse, who's in Kyiv for...
Well, Rita, there's an increasing chasm between the political optimism you've seen there, far from here, and the realities on the ground, the actions that are being taken. The pausing of American aid was bad enough for President Zelensky, who's looking to European Union leaders this week as one of the last avenues, really, for a friendly shoulder to lean on, shall we say. But then the pausing of American intelligence, well, that keeps cities like Kyiv, where I am now, safe. It is information from America that allows air alerts to be sounded for people to head to the shelter. It tells people where the drones are, in what directions they're heading in. It allows Ukrainian soldiers to know where Russian troops are, Russian troops that continue to invade Ukraine. It allows Ukraine to launch long-range missile strikes. And the question now is, how far is Donald Trump willing to go with this political levering? We are heading towards some kind of peace which favours Moscow and not Kyiv.
Here's James Landale with more on what any agreement might involve. James.
In the air, on the sea and against power plants, but not fighting on the ground on missiles and drones, attacks on civilian infrastructure, and only, of course, if Russia would do the same. It would be a start. It would test Russia's good faith, give Donald Trump an early win, and potentially create space for talks about a more lasting ceasefire.
Ukraine must not be invaded again by Russia, and we have to prepare for that. We have to support the Ukrainian army, and it may well be that we can do that through the deployment of European forces.
But all this presumes Donald Trump is on board, and he won't agree a deal without getting access to Ukrainian minerals, and he doesn't want the US military to help secure militarized. He also wants to keep the territory he seized and more in these regions here in red, and he doesn't want any European force here in on Ukrainian soil. Now, critics say that what Russia wants, the US can't deliver, and the Ukrainians won't accept.
Or can back down a bit. Unless they can do that, then I think the Trump administration will find it difficult to take this very far forward.
Rita.
James, thank you.
Tonight from Broadcasting House, as the US pauses intelligence sharing with Ukraine, how are UK intelligence services responding? Plus, we're going to focus on President Putin's response to the last few weeks. Does he want peace? And one of the US's best-known lawyers on the fresh criminal investigation into the Tate brothers. Join us 10:30, BBC Two, BBC News and iPlayer.
Yeah, that's right, Rita. I mean, this seems to be a striking change in US policy. Until now, it was thought that the US only had indirect contact with Hamas through mediators like Qatar. But a few hours ago, the White House press secretary confirmed that the US hostage envoy was involved in those negotiations, describing them as ongoing, and said Israel had been consulted, though we've had very little response from the Israeli government. A senior Hamas official told the BBC there had been 2 direct meetings between Hamas and a US official, as well as several communications in Qatar, focusing on the fate of 5 Israeli-American hostages who are being held in Gaza, one of whom is still believed to be alive. Last warning to Hamas: release all the hostages now and the dead bodies, he says, or it's over for you.
Mira.
Rita, this decision by the United Nations will have an immediate and devastating impact on a community that's already living in a terribly precarious situation. And because of the civil war in Myanmar, well, it means that refugees will continue to come to these camps. And all of that really just boils down to the fact that the need isn't getting any smaller here. It's actually getting much greater.
These are among the world's most vulnerable, fleeing violent persecution and now living as refugees.
Today is Victory in Europe Day. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing.
1945, the relief and joy of an entire country. 80 years on, this year's commemorations aim to capture that mood. As they did in 1945, the royal family will be involved in many of the events. But it is the veterans who really matter. Colin Bell is 104 today. He was a Mosquito pilot during the war.
I thought, I've come to the end of the war. I've come out unscathed. I'm still alive. VE Day had enormous implications for my generation.